Good morning, LBC Radio. My name is Corey Rosen, and you're listening to The Story Podcast. Today, I have on a super awesome guest, Mr. Nick DiSanto.
Hello.
Nick DiSanto is a musician and sculptor from central Pennsylvania, traveling the world with his ukuleles and a multifunctional contrivance known as the DiSantomophone. Nick performs wherever audiences might gather, having brought his one-man parade to countless fairgrounds, retirement communities, street corners, vaudeville theaters, wedding halls, and pubs throughout the United States, Canada, and Japan. Nick's enthusiasm for designing, building, and playing his musical contraptions is boundless, as is his love for the ageless American music that comprises his repertoire. You can find him and his projects at Nick DiSanto One, the number man band. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited to talk about all the contraptions you make, how you figured it out, and all that jazz. But what I'm really what I want to know first, where did your love for music start?
It's always kind of been there. My love for anything creative that I could get my hands on. It was never just music, and it was really not primarily music until into my mid-20s. It was always music, visual art, drawing, sculpture. I remember music especially coming to the forefront when I was maybe in my early teens, late tweens. My brother and I got really into listening to the Beatles, little cassettes that our dad gave us, and singing those songs, and then sort of gravitated to different instruments that sort of complemented each other.
Did you go see Paul McCartney when he was in Baltimore?
I have never seen Paul McCartney. I hope to catch him one of these days.
So when did you start creating your own instruments, or what got you into the one man band aesthetic?
Yeah, I was trying to remember what was actually going through my head when I first started putting instruments on my back. And I remember trying to just put a bass drum on my back to accompany myself while I was playing the guitar. I think I just really missed drums. They're my primary instrument. And so I liked the engineering challenge, being a sculptor as well, of trying to get the drum on my back and make it, lead to my foot and all that stuff. And I remember really thinking that I was going to stop there and that I wasn't going to be one of those sort of gaudy, silly one-man bands that were covered with bells and whistles and stuff. But, that went out the window pretty fast.
What was the reaction when you first came out with a guitar and a drum on your back?
Remarkably positive. Long before it probably sounded coherent or, looked very good or anything, just really, really positive.
So from there, did you have to research about one man bands and what all was a part of that, or was it very much a DIY, figured out yourself?
I'd say it was 50-50. I kind of looked at every photo I could find, both really old, antiquated one-man band setups. There's people doing it around the world. By far, you see more people that sit and play some kind of, foot drum kind of setup.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people that wear the instruments, and I would kind of glean a little bit from their setups. Not a whole lot, but there was a one-man band in the 60s who was, I think he actually had a few mainstream hits. Trying to remember his name now, Don Partridge, I think.
Okay.
And that's where I got the idea to sort of stick a tambourine under my elbow while I'm playing the guitar. But a lot of it was kind of left up to trial and error too.
How did you figure out how to play all that by yourself? That takes, I'm sure, a lot of coordination.
Well, I started on the drums, so
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure that helped a lot.
yeah, you have the 4-way independence, and then I would kind of visualize holding a drumstick while I was strumming the guitar and just kind of pretend that there was a stick in my hand instead of a guitar pick. And that helped me keep rhythm a little bit when I was first starting out.
So what music were you able to play? How did you figure out how to play that music? Because there's specific music for a one-man band.
Mm-hmm.
Did you add that into your repertoire, or did you make it up on the spot?
I think when I started out, I was just playing whatever I'd been playing around campfires and such, for a decade or so. And then there's certain one-man band songs that I've added. I do a lot of music from the 20s and 30s. with that sort of swing beat. It
Mm.
kind of suits the shuffle of a one-man band. And I've definitely added those purposefully. And then I primarily play the ukulele now, so there's also like a lot of ukulele tunes that just every ukulele player seems to like to play, at least like sort of old-timey ukulele players. So I've added those as well.
I didn't realize it was old time ukulele music.
It's not old time in the sense of like bluegrass old time. It's like
Yeah,
old time, like sort of, early 20th century.
gotcha.
They call it ragtime ukulele.
Really?
Hmm.
I have to look into that. I love ragtime. I never thought of ukulele being in ragtime.
Yeah, it's kind of its own term for like that sort of vaudeville, jazzy style of
That's
playing.
cool. So, how many renditions of your one man band have you gone through? Your DiSantomophones.
Hmm. I think I'm on the seventh one that has actually stuck. There have been, sort of attempts in between that didn't really take. But if I've played one for at least a few months, then I'll count it among them. So yeah, I think this is number 7.
What do they usually persist of, instrument wise?
They always have a bass drum and a couple of cymbals. And then I think nowadays they always have a cowbell that I can play, like a wind-powered cowbell.
A wind powered cowbell.
Yeah, I play it with a little piston that I can blow into a tube and activate. And that's just,
Wow.
you only have so many limbs to work with. So
Of course.
it's nice to have a percussion instrument up next to my mouth that I can play as well. Other than that, that's the only real commonality. There's always something under my elbow that acts as a snare drum or a tambourine or something like that.
And how often do you perform?
Right now, it's about 4 times a week. During a good week, I'm a stay-at-home dad until Thursday morning, and then I go wherever they'll have me and play wherever I can until Sunday.
Speaking of wherever you can, you've been to Canada, Japan.
Hmm.
What were the responses up like in those areas?
Canada, I was just performing on the streets. I was just traveling through there and kind of paying my way by playing on the street, and it was a really good experience. It was in a town called Kingston, and my only complaint is that their money is so heavy that it shattered my tip jar. But
Really?
yeah, all the loonies and toonies they threw into my tip jar broke the poor thing. But that's a good problem to have.
For sure. I didn't realize Canadian money was heavy.
Yeah, they use giant coins
Oh yeah,
instead
I
of
guess
$1 or
right.
$2 bills. So
That's crazy. Imagine carrying a whole chunk of change, quite literally.
yeah, it was like carrying a bowling ball around.
Oh my goodness. But what was it like in Japan? A completely different culture.
Yeah, it was fantastic. They have a pretty vibrant street performing culture there.
Do they?
Um, a lot of it took place like after hours. They would set up in front of storefronts at like 10 at night when the stores closed. And I was about always too beat to perform at that point. I was, trying to wander around and be a tourist in July in Japan. So I never quite had it in me to just set up on the street at 10 p.m. But I have a friend who's a professor over there, and he got me about half a dozen shows in various little bars and clubs and places. It was wonderful. It was kind of a nightmare trying to lug a suitcase full of one-man band supplies around the Tokyo subways at
Oh, I'm
times.
sure.
Um, I mean, the people were fantastic. They were, a really receptive audience. Sometimes, when I was in my 3rd hour of playing and I was just kind of a mess, I wanted to be like, okay, you can talk over me now. You can stop paying attention, but just a really attentive, what we would, associate with like a listening room kind of vibe to all the shows, except they were in bars.
Wow, really?
Hmm.
They were that dedicated, that focused on you.
Most of the time, yeah. I mean, some of the bars were more sort of crowded
Of course.
and rowdy than others, but some of the bars were like just a little bit bigger than this studio. So it was, it kind of off in one corner doing my thing, and it was, yeah. They were also the best clappers I've ever performed for. I get, I'm trying to keep all these instruments going at once, and I can get really thrown off by like
Like that, yeah.
slow clappers or overly eager fast clappers, and they were right on the money with me. Even that my rhythm is far from perfect when I'm doing that, but they were right there with me.
That's funny. Do you think did you ever encounter any Japanese one-man bands at all?
Not while I was there, but I don't want to take credit. But since I've returned, this was in 2016, and there's quite a few that I've found on social media or who have found me, um, and they're all sort of finding their own ways to do it. But I, somewhere in the back of my mind, I want to believe that somebody saw some social media footage of me from their friend or something and decided to do it. I want to believe that I'm part of the the wave of one man bands, but yeah, they're there now.
That's cool. Have you ever tried to collaborate with another one-man band?
I haven't. I think maybe by nature we're not good collaborators.
Right.
And truly, like it takes up so much of my time trying to always build more comfortable, more playable versions of my contraption. It sounds like I'm just maybe doing it to because I like to tinker, but it's really like the older I get, it's really imperative that I.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, if something starts to hurt my body, then I need to rework it and reinvent it, and I don't know what I'm doing, so it takes it takes a lot of trial and error.
What are some of the problems that you often come in contact with when making a new set?
Well, certain things will just sort of dig into my back or my neck. Any little bit of weight on me, even if it's tolerable for a few minutes, can, if it's in the wrong spot, if it's hitting a pressure point, it can start to ruin my posture. Or if I'm compensating, if one part of my body is working too hard, then another part compensates, then that goes out of whack. So for all I know, I could move something over a few inches and just save myself a lot of pain and suffering. But I don't really know what that thing might be.
I'm sure like you said, it's a lot of trial and error. I'm sure because
Mhm.
you're trying to figure out something that you've never properly like researched. I guess
Right.
it's something that you're doing out of passion.
Out of passion, and that's, I guess that's what it takes to keep me from getting bored with performing. Is it it takes all the limbs working all the time. I'm just a very restless person.
I'm sure you must be fit too, doing it.
Yeah, my cardio is pretty good. Sometimes I'll build a contraption and then change size drastically, and then I'll have to rework all the straps and attachment points because I'm a much smaller or larger human than I was when I built it.
So, what has been your favorite performance so far? Do you think?
Hmm, that's an interesting one because I mean, there are so many sort of strange performances you do as a one man band
I'm
because
sure.
it's closer to being like a singing telegram person at times. It's like people don't often hire me just to sort of stand in their club and play music for 2 hours. It's something like it's this person's birthday or anniversary, and can you barge in and surprise them? Or um, I remember one family was camping in their backyard, and they were all wearing sort of, I think, like 1800s period clothing. It was supposed to be like a bigger event, but it got a little bit drizzly, so it was just the family whose yard it was, and I had no idea what to expect. But I went, and it was a really interesting show. It's like they're staying in this sort of pup tent kind of, or I don't know, like this sort of old timey like canvas tent, and they were like all just in their period clothing, and like they were cooking outside and doing everything outside, and
That's cool.
they just wanted to hear all about the music and the contraption and my stories and everything, and it was um, just being there with them during this, they're really committed to this camp out, and just being part of that was just really unexpected.
Yeah, I'm sure walking in and seeing everything of the 1800s is like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah, and it was, like usually I'm sort of the one that sticks out, and
Mhm.
like we were all sort of in this this whimsical frame of mind.
Have you ever done the Renaissance Fair at all?
I haven't done the Renaissance Fair. I'm doing the Enchanted Fairy Festival next
Mm.
month, and I did a cowboy festival, which I guess I sort of tangentially fit in with. It was,
Yeah.
I did my best. I put a handkerchief on and I wore a cowboy hat, and then I kind of like I told him I don't really know cowboy songs. I played every sort of train song
Mm-hmm.
that I could think of, and I played "Ramblin' Rose" by Nat King Cole. It's not a cowboy song, but it talks about rambling.
It
So
fits, yeah.
yeah. Oftentimes people want me for these really specialized shows, and I have to say, like, well, like I played the opening of Mary Poppins at the Fulton Theater. Like, well,
Really?
most of my songs are from the next century up, but they're about 50 years off. But I'll do it, and I look old timey enough. So
Right. As long as you fit the spectacle.
yeah, I usually buy the right hat, and then just kind of try to piece it together from there.
What do you think is one of your most interesting stories that you like to tell people?
Um, there are so many. I always remember I've played a bunch of weddings, which is you wouldn't necessarily think it, seeing a one man band sort of, sweating and laboring and, playing a kazoo. It's not like the
Mm-hmm.
most romantic scene in the world, but um, I mean, I love it. Like, my hat's off to anybody who wants me at their wedding. It's always been really fun and really memorable. But I played at a proposal, which was it was I'll always remember that one. It's a very, it's not high pressure. Like, they didn't put a lot of pressure on me. It was the man hired me, and was pretty much hide in the corner of this space, and then I'm going to bring my girlfriend in, and then just play some love songs, and I'm going to pop the question to her, and luckily she said yes. It would have been really memorable had she said no. Um, and I don't even think we went over the song list or anything. I just sort of played I played a Nina Simone love song, um, and but it feels very high pressure. That's a
Oh, for sure. That's a big moment for both of those people.
absolutely. It's like on the very short list of big moments in your life, I would think. Um, and then there was another proposal where I wasn't a one man band. I just sort of wandered into a restaurant and played Unchained Melody on the guitar, and it was really fun. But that one was even more. I was even more nervous because that one we had a precise time worked out, and they were both in the restaurant, just sitting having a normal date in the restaurant, and I just strolled in with the guitar and played Unchained Melody, and half the people in the restaurant knew what was going on and saw him propose, and half the people didn't. They just sort of politely applauded this man that walked in off the streets and played some Righteous Brothers on the guitar.
That's did you have to work out at the restaurant with that or
I think he had done that
okay?
beforehand.
So say I'm always curious about those like planned proposals and like how well do you have to plan that or how
Right.
well of it's just spur of the moment.
I think in both cases the gentleman had planned everything with the space beforehand. Um, and the that would have been a whole other layer if the staff was sort of trying to tap me on the shoulders and
Like,
politely.
what are you doing? Stop! I'm trying to do something.
I think I sort of explained, like, I came in with the guitar and was like, I'm here to. I mean, yeah, we know he's around the corner.
That's good. So, how do you get your gigs nowadays? You just walk around with your one man band attire and set up, or
There's very few sort of um, unplanned sort of street performing, kind of gigs nowadays. I have a standing, day of the week at Kitchen Kettle Village where it's street performing, but I'm the only one there, and I'm asked to be there.
Mhm.
So it's not, you don't quite have that same chaos factor that you do when you're just rolling up to a town and trying to find the best place to busk. Um, and then I guess I have enough recurring clients who, they have a yearly festival or something. I don't get quite as many retirement home shows as I used to before the pandemic.
Mm.
I have some now. I'd say I have like 30 or 40% of as many as I used to. But those are the most memorable performances, I
For
think,
sure.
because I'll have people that can't see and that need to come up and feel all my instruments to understand what's going on, or I'll just have people tell me that they're in a lot of pain and that it has turned their day around to watch a one-man band. And I think seniors just like seeing me work really hard. I think it just inspires them to watch a young person working really, really hard at what they do.
I'm sure. I wonder if any of them remember old, one-man bands of old. I
It's
don't know.
yeah. I seem to remember a few of them said like there was someone in my town that used to do that. Um, I think part of the reason people respond to it so much is because it's an image that we all have in our head, like the specific guy wearing a bass drum with a bunch of instruments around his mouth, playing and singing is a very iconic image that almost nobody has actually seen in person.
Right. It's just pictures or Hollywood.
Right, right. It's even I've someone my mom got me a little like Christmas ornament of a one man
Yeah.
band
Right. Yeah.
figurine. It's it's definitely an icon that you really just don't encounter in your day to day life.
Do you want to live up to that icon, or do you?
I do. I think the downside of being a one man band, aside from the physical punishment,
Mhm.
is that it definitely puts me in a box where I'm not really playing my original songs, or I'm not really trying to say anything to the audience as far as like the content of the songs I'm playing. I'm really just trying to be that icon, and I think of it as a kinetic sculpture or a living sculpture. That my sole purpose is really to I want someone to walk around the corner and see me and just be taken out of their sort of commonplace, day to day. Maybe they're just having a frustrated kind of, dreary humdrum day, and I'm really trying to transform space the way public art does. But that doesn't leave any room for me to kind of
Experiment.
yeah. The one man band itself makes enough of a statement that I, I feel kind of silly chiming in with my own statements. Just pipe down and play when the Saints go marching in.
Yeah. Right. So how do you get across your original material or other stuff that you do outside of the one-man band?
There's two ways. Every now and then I get hired to I'll do a seated performance. So if I'm playing in a place where it just tonally doesn't fit to wear all the instruments and have that sort of wacky, parade kind of vibe to it, then I'll just sit and play foot drums, and I still play mostly the old music from the 20s and 30s, but I'll throw in some originals, and it's not as much of a tone clash.
Mm.
But those are few, and those are only every few months. So I always feel like I don't quite get the stage time to shape the repertoire the way I want to. Always sort of improvising a little bit. And then I've been in a two-piece band called Lava Cave for, geez, I think we're in our 11th or 12th year now.
With Robin Chambers,
With
right?
Robin
Yeah.
Chambers, yeah. But we haven't played consistently in a few years, really since my son was born. Um, we'll go through little spurts where we'll play for a few months, but it's really we're trying to figure it out again now. We're trying to figure out how to get together. It's just a matter of getting the rehearsal time in, because what happens is we've been playing for so long that we can get away with just showing up and playing, and I
Hmm.
think people have a good time, but to put anything new into the set and to just not get bored. It's always us sort of trying to dust everything off. I'm like, all right, this sounds great. All right, next song, and just trying to get the old repertoire dusted off and get into fighting form. But we haven't really had time to do any new material in quite some time.
Talking about the old material, what are some of the top 20s, 30s songs that you would recommend to anybody?
Well, yeah, I always thought I was a 1920s guy, but when I go back and look at the dates of a lot of my favorite songs, they're actually from the early 30s. I love playing a song called "It's Only a Paper Moon." Um, I think that's a gorgeous song. What else? I really like Cab Calloway is one of my favorites. I play a couple Bessie Smith tunes. It's really like a boy doing a woman's job when I sing a Bessie Smith song, but it's I do my best. And she would do a lot of songs that were old at the time that she recorded them. There's a few songs from like the 1800s that I sort of learned her version of it. Um, I love the song "After You've Gone." It's a pretty well-known sort of standard song. Um, but again, some of these songs have like a sort of downcast, kind of bluesy feel. And
Mm,
I'll do them as the one-man band, but you got to sprinkle them in kind of gingerly.
of course, right. I It's incredible to me that you can sing one of the songs, still feel the emotions of it.
Yeah, well, that's the hardest part for sure. Singing in general,
Mm-hmm.
when you're wearing all the stuff, and
Moving
there's
around and
yeah, and the breath control goes out the window, and relaxing all the parts that need to be relaxed is pretty difficult. Um, Usually by the last like half hour, I feel like I'm there, but it just takes longer to loosen up than most other musical configurations. And the first sort of half hour and the last sort of half hour they can be unpredictable. Usually I'll hit the sweet spot, but people forgive you a lot when you're trying to do all that.
yeah, that's what I say. It's a tall order for a one man band, period.
Right.
And then to have to sing on top of that, I'm pretty sure people are like, I'm just glad to see you.
Right. Yeah. Like he's doing it.
Yeah,
Good for him.
yeah, he's giving it his best shot, and
Yeah.
I can applaud him just for that.
Well, yeah, and it can get discouraging as a musician. You want to get better and better, and you want to sort of hone in on little nuances of your performance, and focus on every little aspect of your playing. And I really just can't do that. Like I just have to sort of get through it, and try to make sure it's nice and coherent and loud and clear, and try and keep the rhythm as steady as I can.
And what it is what it is.
Yep, it's a blunt instrument for sure.
What would you say to people who want to get into their own one man band or try to set up their own kit?
I would say from the very start, like just think about like the toll it's taking on your body. Because when I was in my 20s, I think my second instrument had about 17 different instruments on it, if you count every kind of bell and whistle on there. And I don't think I ever weighed that one. I have no idea how much it weighed, but when I look at pictures of myself with my second contraption, I was like doubled over while I was singing because it was so heavy. And I just watched my neck position and
Mm.
watch what my knees were doing. And I'm still feeling all that. I'm taking instruments off so that I can play them as I get into my 40s. But it's kind of funny in your 20s to like put yourself through all this punishment to wear this big wacky instrument. But I would say err on the side of the
Longevity.
lightest instrument. Yeah, yeah. Kind of baby yourself more than you think you need to.
Well, no, you're right. When I did marching band, I marched the glockenspiel.
Mm,
So just full straps, no back support, but a whole glockenspiel. And I'm feeling those effects now.
right. Yeah.
Of my back is all twisted, and granted, I have casts of steel, but
Right.
my back is way worse for wear.
Hmm.
Just because of marching band.
Right. And how many years was that you were?
Four or 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I've got to watch my knees. So sometimes when I'm playing tag with my son, I'll feel my knees get a little bit tricky, and then I'll have to make my excuses. But my goal is I want to be, I mean, able-bodied. When my son is 12 or 13.
Of course.
So if it means having to wear fewer instruments when I play when the Saints go marching in, then
So be it.
I guess that's more important.
Yeah, that's something else a lot of musicians should probably realize is that longevity is the most important part of being a musician.
Yeah, even if you're just playing one, it's a very real thing, and I'm trying to go back and kind of break bad habits now. As a vocalist, as a stringed instrument player, this whole one man band business has me all hunched over and bent at weird angles, and I'm trying to straighten up and relax everything now. But it's a little harder when you're middle aged to try and go back and relearn all these things.
Yeah, learn how you're supposed to walk. Learn how you're supposed to
Right.
right. Yeah, how you're supposed to sit. How you're supposed to do all these normal things that you've been doing wrong for years.
And think about it during your performance. It's
Yeah, while you're thinking about a million other things.
that's the main difference. It's like being a golfer. I'm thinking about keep your head here, keep your feet this far apart. I imagine every musician has a fair share of that amount of those kind of things that crop up at a show. Like something feels off, and like where do I make the adjustments? But for me, It's just unending stream of adjustments.
We talking about some of your performances. You also worked at a Nickelodeon show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a show called NFL Slime Time. Um, it was the strangest whirlwind of events. I was just in the yard with my son in the afternoon, and somebody from Nickelodeon called me and basically said, "This show is like sort of a football, like a sports recap highlights show for kids." And I guess they sort of bet on certain, not bet, but they sort of predict certain teams to
Hmm.
win every episode. And they had this losing streak where their team just was losing every single week. And their team finally won. So they wanted to make this big sort of grand spectacle. So basically, they wanted confetti to fall and a big curtain to come down in the background, and then a one-man band to march across the screen playing Stars and Stripes Forever on the kazoo. Um, but
You played that on the kazoo.
it's you really have to
That's,
simplify the Sousa to.
I was gonna say that's the da 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 da. Is that the Stars and Stripes Forever?
I think it was the da 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 da
Oh, yeah,
da.
that's what it is. Da 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 da. Da. Yeah, that'd be a hard one to play on kazoo.
It was just a condensed few seconds of it, and basically walk across the stage to this spot, look at the camera, turn and walk off the screen. But they they didn't know this team was going to win until a
Right, of
couple days
course.
before shooting, maybe one day before shooting. So they called me up. I think the team won on Sunday. They called me on Monday to be in Manhattan and film on Tuesday morning. So I basically had to find childcare for my son. So my mom was able to watch my son, get all of his stuff ready, fill out all the paperwork needed to, all the sort of background checks and everything, and then send those all in and go find a rapid COVID test, which was kind of hard to do at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was before they were being sent out to people, and it was before they could keep them on the shelves in any drugstore. So miraculously, I found one of those and took the test and tested negative. Got my son's food and clothes and everything all set up, and then left for New York at like 7:30 or 8 at night, and got there, in the middle of the night, and man, just everything about if there are any one-man bands in Manhattan, my hat is off to you because I had to park my car in the garage with all my gear in it in a parking garage, and then just sort of walk to my hotel and collapse and try and be ready for the next day. But
And hope it was all still there in the morning.
I didn't realize that parking garages in Manhattan, they put the cars up on these like
Oh yeah,
lifts.
yeah, that's right.
So I sort of wandered into this garage the next day and, had to sort of explain to this guy, like, my contraptions are up in my car. I don't know if it's up on a lift, but I need to get all these one-man band contraptions out of my car. I don't want the car right now. I just need to. And luckily it wasn't on a lift, and it wasn't even like, in a big sea of cars. It was just kind of by itself, parked on the corner. So I got all that and went to the studio and had to take another COVID test. And that was the most nerve-wracking part of the whole thing, because it was, what if I test positive now?
Right.
And when my test was ready to look at the results, I saw them like just staring at it for like minutes. And the one woman was like, "Hey, can you come take a look at this?" And they're conferring over my test results for like a long time. And it's like, if this is positive, this was all useless. This is all totally pointless, and I just have to go back home now. I just got a free night in a hotel in Manhattan from like 11 at night to the morning. But it was negative, and I got to do it. It was mostly waiting around while they decked out my contraption with like Nickelodeon looking stuff. They wanted to match their color scheme, and they put the logo on the drum heads. And then the most memorable part was there was some incident backstage where there was a big slime spill, and it was exactly as I would have thought Nickelodeon was when I was a kid. If you go backstage, I would have thought they were like mopping up slime and stuff, and it's what was going. They tried to freeze some slime to preserve it for some segment they were doing, and when it thawed, it sort of expanded beyond its containers and started to take over the backstage area. So there were all these very like important looking like TV personalities walking through slime. It was really interesting.
I'm sure that must have been a dream almost.
It was, yeah. It really brought me back. I didn't know if they were going to slime me because I was like concerned they were going to slime my contraption. But there's like, we don't really do that, and we'd let you know if we wanted to.
Right, of course. I hope so.
I think I wore a slime hat. It was like a rubber hat that looks like I'd been slimed.
That's cool. Do you still have all that like logo stuff on that contraption, or?
I don't. I think I kept one. They cut out a big like purple feather that I think they put in my hat, even though I ended up wearing the slime hat. But they put a big purple feather on my hat at one point, and I gave that to my son for him to play with.
That's awesome.
And there will be confetti from it in my car till the day my car dies. I think I'm just continuously finding it.
That's awesome. Do you ever want to do like stuff like that? Like, have you ever thought about doing TV shows or anything like documentaries?
I hadn't. I'm a pretty sort of nervous, self-conscious, on-air personality. I think. Luckily, all I had to do was walk and then look at the camera.
And then walk away.
Yeah, but I don't know if I could do anything more sophisticated than that, or it would take 10 more years of practice before I could do that. I thought about all kinds of different like documentaries or blogs or video blogs. It's just a matter of, I think my son is now reaching a certain age where I can branch out and start to focus on these things again. But I've kind of been just trying to keep my head above water while he's been a baby and toddler, just trying to find enough work. But he's really good about letting me work now and sort of doing his thing. So,
Isn't that incredible when a baby starts like actually being able to do whatever they want, and you can like just let them do what
it's
they want?
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I'll leave some of my tools out for him to touch, like anything that a 3-year-old can safely handle, and any instruments that I'm not worried about, a 3-year-old touching. But so between that and just letting him go have some free play, yeah, he's surprisingly reasonable. Like, I need to work on my instruments. I think it's funny that he just sees my instruments and associates it with work. Like, that's just what work looks like to him. But yeah, I'm really proud of him. I'm really impressed by his ability to let me get those things done.
What does he think so far, or does he think anything of your one man band act?
And he loves it. He'll usually ask me, to play different parts of it if I'm wearing it around him. And I think he's under the impression that other grown-ups do similar things when they're at work.
He's probably in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, he is. I mean, if you think about it, he's in daycare where they sing a lot. And then his
Yeah.
dad sings at work. So I think he was asking me the other day if different people sang while they were at work. And I was like, well, it's probably not part of their job, but they might.
They
Hopefully
might.
they do
Hopefully.
some point in their workday.
So how do you plan? You've traveled all over the world. How do you plan those travels? Do you think much about it, or do you just go and worry about it later?
Um, I think with Japan, my friend Josh, who's a professor over there, I think he really did the heavy lifting for me as far as even like where to stay. There were a few hostels that we booked and everything, but he lined up places to stay that I never would have found, and I never would have known how to book a show there. And there were sort of quirky places where they were kind of these little arts collective, and it really didn't look like a place where you would wander in and give them a business card and ask for it. So that was all up to him. Canada, I just basically researched the busking laws for this town, Kingston, and got an Airbnb and just went from there. And that's the last few years, the only travel I've really done is either up to New England or down to the upper South and done something similar. I'll just research, basically, are they friendly or unfriendly towards street performers? And then if it seems like other people are doing it, I'll get an Airbnb and just try my luck. For now, I think the long-term travel or international travel is just indefinitely on hold.
Mm-hmm. We have some of your songs we would like to play. Let's hear about the
Halloween at the Poorhouse. Yeah, that's a really old tune. It's just sort of a little vignette that popped into my head. It was sort of most of my songs are in some way about coping with anxiety in some form or another. And this one came out a little bit more about shame. It's about two people running into each other and denying that they, you never saw me, I never saw you. It doesn't have any literal bearing on my life. It was just a certain feeling of like being kind of ashamed of your past, and just these little bit closer to a character song than anything I usually write. And yeah, just basically has the wisest words I ever wrote in the chorus. It just says, "What now?" And that's, yeah. I kind of thought of the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz when she gets melted and she screams, "What a world! What a world!" It's this very vaudevillian kind of thing to yell. And sometimes I just, throw my hands up and say, "What now?" So it's a good thing to get off your chest when you're playing it live.
Well, with that said, this is Halloween at the Poorhouse. Is it by you or by Lava Cave?
It's by Lava Cave. Robin had huge contributions to the arrangement of this tune. I think you'll be able to hear that.
Here it is. And that was Halloween at the Poorhouse by Lava Cave. What a fun song.
Oh, thanks.
We have another one of yours, Calamity Jane. You want to talk about that one?
That's just a breakup song, plain and simple. It's kind of the breakup stage right when you know it's over, but you haven't parted ways yet. It's the best I can describe it. So, someone's on their way out and you're just kind of trying to say goodbye.
Well, with that said, this is Calamity Jane. Is this also by Lava Cave?
This is also by Lava Cave. Should add, these both have Robin Chambers, and this is when we had Donna Volis as our bass player.
And we should also say that you can find them on Spotify.
You can find them on Spotify, yeah.
So, with that said, this is Calamity Jane by Lava Cave.
When we were younger, I used to wonder what life becomes. From the beginning, just how much living is quite enough. Now I'm not altogether living, but I'm alright. As long as I can keep the memories quiet all night. As long as I get some sleep before they come back to bite. Stumble, ready to tumble from a bluff so high. Left me beneath you, too scared to leave you, too low to cry. Now I'm still standing at the bottom, but it's alright. As long as I can feel the earth, I'm gonna hold tight. I never could stand the view from that terrible height. So pack up your stories, get up before me, run like a child. Your loving creature, too slow to reach you, has left the wild. This little cage is kinda lonesome, but it's alright. While all those eyes are peering in, I gotta hold tight. As long as they're throwing scraps, I won't put up a fight. So don't call home for me. Home don't mean anything. Good night, dear calamity. Good night, dear calamity. Good night, dear calamity. Good night, dear calamity.
And that was Calamity Jane by Lava Cave. Where can people find you? Do you have any upcoming performances?
Yeah, my one-man band. I'm at Kitchen Kettle Village every Friday, and then the occasional Saturday. I think I'm there this Saturday and September 2nd. I'm at the Hanover Chili Cook-Off, roaming around the grounds on September 4th. That's a real interesting one because I'm just sort of trying to navigate my way through the crowds of people, and it gets a little it gets a little dicey sometimes. Sorry if I get in your way. And then I'm at the Enchanted Fairy Festival, like I said. I believe that's September 17th. And then I'm at the Broad Street Market in Harrisburg on the 24th. I could go on, but that's.
And I'm sure you can find all of his events on your Instagram.
Well, as of yesterday, I believe, you can go to nickdisanto.band and find all my events. I've been trying to get my website set up for a long time, and I finally found the right person for the job. So, yep, nickdisanto.band will take you there.
There you go. Well, hey, I have some general questions before we end off the episode. So, first one, what is the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
The best piece of advice. A man who was making me custom insoles for my shoes once told me to fine tune my living. So I was thinking in terms of being a sculptor then. Now I'm a sculptor, but I was thinking in terms of being a sculptor then, and he was saying, find something really fine tuned. Maybe no one around here makes ice sculptures, just for example. So I feel like I have taken that to heart.
Did you ever commit to being a sculptor?
I've done, some commercial sculpture work. I have a friend that does gets a lot of commercial sculpture jobs. It's hard between my performance schedule and my parenting responsibilities. It's hard to be of any use to him right now.
Fair enough.
Oh, and speaking of sculpture, the other best piece of advice is my sculpture professor once told me I tried to wiggle everything before it was dry. And I would undermine the structural integrity of all my things by trying to move them around before whatever glue or anything set. And I think both literally and metaphorically.
Those are good advice. Yeah. What are some of the biggest mistakes that maybe you've made or seen other people make in the music industry, and how can we curb that for future generations?
Oh, the industry, I'm not sure about. I don't know if I feel qualified to speak to that because I have such a kind of offbeat, silly little corner of the cake. But I feel myself kind of conforming to audience expectations for reasons we discussed earlier. And I certainly don't want to challenge my audience with I don't want to rankle them with my material per se, but I do sometimes think that we lose focus. Our initial goals as creative people kind of creep towards just a more general acceptance, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with meeting your audience's needs too. But I think there's a certain degree of sameness that can creep in. I know I've felt it with myself. Some of the strange barnacles that used to cling to my ship that I kind of miss that have gotten sanded off because I'm trying to please my audience. So that's more of a warning to myself, I think, than to anyone else.
What are some of the funniest things or some of the worst things that ever happened to you during a performance?
When you're playing out on the street, it could go either way. And there was one time where a gentleman with a guitar asked if he could come play with me, and he just wanted to sit in for a minute, because obviously I'm a one-man band. The whole premise falls apart if you come join me.
Right.
But this guy had a guitar, and I started playing a song, and he was just everything he was playing sounded sort of strange and out of key, but he was really friendly, so I just kind of went with it. And I was like, well, he must be just sort of a rocker that knows how to play in the popular guitar keys. So, I'll play a song in E or A, and he'll get it. And then I looked over and I realized that he was just plucking open strings on a guitar that was really out of tune. It was just a prop. He was just a guy wandering the streets with a guitar, and he was just just plonking on the strings as hard as he could, atonally. And it was just the worst cacophony. If you imagine, a one-man band is noisy enough without a detuned guitar just plonking away. And, obviously I've gotten the whole spectrum of either harassment or, just sort of strange people taking an interest in me. My favorite was when I was playing with. I used to have this little basket of instruments for kids or adults that wanted to play along, and these two kids came up while I was playing a song and just sort of they waved dollar bills and kind of said something, and I thought they were offering to tip me if they could play along, and I just nodded and sort of looked at the basket, and they just picked up two drums from the basket, like one drum each, and just walked off. And I realized what they were
Oh
asking me if they
my.
could purchase the instruments in the basket for $1 each. And I said yes. In fairness to them, they asked and they paid, so they they just walked off with their purchased instruments. Luckily, nothing too expensive ever goes into there.
Fair enough. It's kind of funny. Has a instrument ever broken on you?
Oh yes, yeah. Everything is broken. Uh, um, yeah, it depends on what breaks and what kind of show it is. I can if it's at Kitchen Kettle Village, I can just say I'm going to take a little break and be back with you soon. But I mean, the guitars, the harmonicas, the kazoos, the bass drum itself that's when there's trouble. Like I can work
Mm.
around anything, but when the bass drum breaks, it's hard to recover from that. So nowadays I play the bass drum with both feet. So if the attachment to one foot breaks, then I can still. It's not easy. I sort of have to reshuffle in my brain on the spur of the moment. But a few months ago, my right foot attachment broke, so I just had to play the bass drum with my left foot the whole time, and it worked fine. I couldn't really move around or lose myself in the performance, but other people don't know about which foot controls what. They don't care. So
It's just there to watch.
right.
So, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started?
Oh, that's a good question. One thing I know now that I wish I'd known when I first started. Whew. I think I would, when I first started, I think I generally tried to lay things on a little bit too thick. I think every performer goes through a period where they're shy at first, and then they get really sort of overly, we ham it up a little too much. I drew a graph of this once at rehearsal. We go from hammy to mousy to a happy medium. So I drew a big ham hock and then a little mouse and then a half mouse, half ham kind of hybrid. So nowadays, I'm not trying to lay things on as thick. And I look at old videos of myself performing and I kind of cringe. I still have trouble with this. I have trouble loosening up and just sort of being relaxed and comfortable. I sort of push everything a little bit too much. So I'd say I would go back and give myself that advice, but I'm hoping like me 5 years from now can come back to now and give me that advice tomorrow when I go to perform.
What is one of the most memorable lessons you've ever learned?
Most memorable lesson is that for whatever reason, the one-man band is useful and valuable to people. And that's why I miss playing in as many retirement homes as I used to, because it not only seemed like it was entertaining people, but it felt useful. And the lesson was that even the silliest possible way to get music across, it was valuable to people. I mean, I play in memory loss, areas of the building. There's always the independent living floor and then the memory loss floor, and I'll usually play both if I go to a retirement community. And people that don't, that have no short-term memories or aren't conversational can start singing along with certain songs. And
That's
I've
cool.
had people tell me that unresponsive relatives will sort of smile and tap their feet if they hear a song that, harkens back to something in their mind. So
That's cool.
yeah, this stuff is useful. It's not like a silly indulgence. I mean, it's silly to be sure, but
But
it's useful.
it has its practical uses too.
Yeah.
Last question. What is one thing that you can encourage other musicians with?
I think that would have to kind of dovetail with that foot doctor's advice to me. It would be, I mean, it's not necessarily to be weird or be different, because I know plenty of people that can do everything they need to do in a more conventional format by playing one instrument and being good at one instrument and maybe singing a song along with that instrument, maybe not. but it would be maybe not to allow yourself to be pressured by the way things are going. I mean, at this point, I don't really fit in with any audience. Like I'm, a little bit too weird for the bar scene, but some of these songs are a little bit too bluesy and too melancholy to be like a straight up kind of kids entertainer. So I'm kind of neither fish nor fowl, and that you'll definitely lose some work, but I just don't think you should feel too compelled. I'd say think about what you're not. It's easier than realizing what you are.
Yeah. Well, hey, with all that said, if you have enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with all your friends. If you want to see Nick, please be sure to go check out his website, Nick DiSanto Band.
NickDiSanto.band.
Check out all of his performances. It's really a once in a lifetime experience, I'm sure. I'm gonna have to check him out because I've only known you from other people.
Right. Yeah.
So, if you want to check out our upcoming episodes or any of our past episodes, you can go anywhere, search up The Story, Corey Rosen, that's CORYROSEN. If you want to check out our upcoming guests, you can go to our Facebook or Instagram. Up this Sunday, we have a musician, comedian, and actor, Mr. Austin Green. Otherwise, I hope you guys have if you really want to support us, we do have merchandise out for sale. That is something we do have. We got stickers, and we have shirts and hoodies with the first 50 guests on the back. Be sure to get those in before September, because otherwise you might not be able to get one. With all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you guys later. Bye.